I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and Verizon customers, you've been kind of left out in the dark lately. You know, AT&T's gotten the One X, T-Mobile's gotten the Galaxy S3, Sprint's gotten the Viper 4G LTE, the Galaxy Nexus, all these different devices, and Verizon's been kind of left out. You know, you customers, I'm sure you kind of felt bad, at least for the first couple of months of the year. Well, now they've got an HTC device, and it's kind of like one of the devices in the One series. This is the DROID Incredible 4G LTE, and it's packing some specs that are kind of similar to the HTC One S. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, a 4-inch QHD display, an 8-megapixel camera, Android 4.0 with HTC Sense version 4. It's a new device, but it kind of comes in somewhere between the HTC One V and the One S. It's available now at Verizon for $149.99. Is this the ultimate device for you? We're going to find out. But first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like this for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They help you get your email set up, your web, all that stuff. So when you walk out the door with this device, you don't have to worry about any of the configuration at Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. DROID Incredible 4G LTE. Is this the device to get? Should you wait for the Galaxy S3? Or maybe you should wait for another HTC device to come to Verizon? We'll find out starting right now. The DROID Incredible line is back. Here's the DROID Incredible 4G LTE. This is available as of today, actually as of yesterday, the 5th at Verizon Wireless for $149.99 with a 2-year agreement. So a little bit on the costly side, at least in my opinion, because I look at this device in terms of specs and I'm like, this thing kind of falls in between a One V and a One X when you look at it. It's got a 1.2 gigahertz dual core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 CPU. It's got a 4-inch QHD display, so not quite HD display, but 4 inches. So a little bit smaller than the One S in the display side, a little bit more underpowered in terms of the processor. It's got an 8-megapixel camera though with 1080p HD video recording, packing Verizon's 4G LTE, and then it's got a 1,700 milliamp hour battery. So battery's a little bit on the small side too, but we'll talk about that in part 2. I haven't had a ton of time to really get some in-depth battery stuff that I would like to get, but still I've had enough time with it. I can give you some brief observations. Also, Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich with HTC Sense version 4.0. So it's packing some new features. It's definitely a new device from HTC, but you can see it, and you particularly see it with somebody like me that's worked with the One X. I've worked with both versions of the One X. I've worked with the One S. And I've worked with the Evo 4G LTE. I can tell there's a slight difference between the processor speeds. Now, if you're a Verizon customer, you're looking for a decent smartphone, you're probably not going to notice this, but if you're somebody that's maybe coming from a One X or coming from something with a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon CPU, you're going to notice it. I think you'll see it, you know, in little things like transition effects and more when you have more than one app running or more than a couple of applications running. I think you'll find it to be a little bit different. But here's the device here. It looks a lot like the HTC Resound. And actually, let me see if I can reach over to my drawer and pull out the Resound. Let me see if I can. It happens to be right on top. Perfect. You can see the Resound in comparison. It's like a baby Resound. It fits right in here, and it's packing HTC's new button interface here. Capacitive buttons at the bottom, back, home, and then recent applications, whereas you can see the old look and feel here. But very similar in terms of design to the HTC Resound. Much thinner though, definitely fits in the hand as opposed to the Resound. A little bit on the small side, at least in the way it fits in the hand. That's a good thing for a lot of people because this is only packing a 4-inch display, so I think it'll be more pocketable for many. But definitely thin and light. It's lost some weight, and with that 1,700 milliamp hour battery, it's a decent size battery. Now, HTC, it's interesting because they've moved over to, at least with the One X, the Evo 4G LTE, some smaller batteries. People are kind of concerned 1,800 milliamps here, 1,700 milliamp hours here, but what I will tell you is that I've been pretty pleased with the standby times with HTC's batteries, and this is no exception. I'd like it to be a little bit bigger. I'd love to see it as maybe like an 1,800 or 2,000 milliamp hour battery like what's in the Evo 4G LTE, but the bonus here is you can remove the back cover so you can replace the battery if you want to. You can't do that with the Evo 4G LTE or the One X, but you can with this one. So if you have a spare battery, you can buy it, and when it runs out, you can pop in another battery, and that is that. So that's a nice feature, and of course there are some people that still like the design of the Resound, and for those people, you've got an option to have this device. Micro SD card slot, micro SIM card slot, both behind there, and like I said, Verizon's 4G LTE. Now let's take a look at the inside, kind of the guts, the software, not the guts literally, because we'd be looking at hardware, but software is here. Android 4.0 with HTC Sense version 4, and out of the gate you can see the typical Verizon stuff. Now it's kind of funny moving from a device like the One X or the Galaxy S3 or even some of these 4.5-inch devices. There's a noticeable size difference here. If you're coming from something that, maybe you're coming from the iPhone 4S, you're looking for a nice Android alternative, this could be the device for you because it has a slightly larger display. If you're coming from the Galaxy S3 or the Evo 4G LTE for whatever reason, I don't know why you'd be coming from that given how new it is, but maybe you're moving over to Verizon, you're looking at this. The display size, take a look at it in store prior to purchasing, because the 4 inches, I think it's still a sweet spot for a lot of people, but I think that sweet spot is quickly moving to 4.3 inches and up. So keep that in mind. It is a little bit on the small side, and it will be for a lot of people, but you can see similar transition effects here as a part of Sense 4 that you would see on the 1X, Evo 4G LTE, and the other devices in the series. Frequent downloads of Verizon Wireless over here. Now, out of the gate here, you get some Verizon stuff. VCast apps, Let's Golf 3 HD. You got Verizon Mobile Hotspot, which allows up to 10 connections, and you can share that 4G LTE on Verizon with part of their Share Everything plans now, which is nice. So you can pool that data together amongst everybody in the family. Use the data to your heart's content as long as you don't go over. If you go over, you're going to be paying a little bit extra. My Verizon Mobile, you've got NFL Mobile, you've got Slingbox over here, you've got Real Racing 2, Slacker, and you got VZ Navigator, Verizon Video, and VCast Tones. Now, unfortunately, if the past is any indicator, I'm going to take a look just to be on the safe side, but let's take a look at the apps. I have a feeling, yeah, you can't uninstall any of that stuff, so that's something to keep in mind. You can't remove the Verizon stuff, can't remove Amazon Kindle, can't do things like that. But I like Sense 4. I think it's a nice upgrade from Sense 3 and Sense 3.5. That said, I still see a little bit, the transition effects are still a little bit on the heavy side here in comparison to the other UIs on the market, like TouchWiz or like Sony's UI. Transition effects are heavy here, and what I will say is it works out okay for like the Evo 4G LTE and the 1X because they've got a slightly faster processor. I see a little bit of a lag here, which kind of makes me think that they either should have gone with a faster processor or kind of pared down some of the transition effects. Otherwise, 7 home screens here. Let's take a look at some of the widgets so you can see those. Similar HTC look and feel here in terms of the widgets. You've got your 7 home screens easily accessible up here at the top. Then you have Amazon MP3. You can see scrolling through all of these, or you can go individually and take a look, let's say, calendar, for example. And what I like about these, most of the HTC widgets now, we'll do that, yeah, it works. Most of the HTC widgets now are customizable within themselves. So it's not just the stock Google widgets, the stock ice cream sandwich widgets, it's these as well. So if I want to customize the size, don't want that to fill up the whole screen, I can easily move back and forth and customize those to my heart's content. Now let's take a look at people as well, and this is something that's particularly interesting because they have done some revisions here. So Bill Stevenson, for example, me, and you can see the ice cream sandwich look and feel here. Picture obviously of me from the office. Bill Stevenson, Google, and then mobile, text messaging. And what I love though is the personal information management here. They continue to do a great job with this because let's say Bill and I talk on a regular basis and it's like, when did I last text Bill? When did I last call Bill? Well, I can come over here to the thread and see messages, email, and call history. My apologies if it's hard to see. I have the font set pretty small here. And then I can see updates and I can see gallery. So I can see all of it's kind of my hub for Bill Stevenson. Keep that in mind. If Bill Stevenson is your bud, you got a hub for Bill Stevenson. And then you can come back and forth through here and easily access the contact, or you can go back to the thread and say, hey, emailed him on Tuesday, called him on Monday, text messaged him on Thursday, and he's still not responding to any of my messages. What a lame friend. Actually, that's kind of me in my personal life. I am terrible at responding to text messages. Anybody that's my friend knows this, or my family member knows this. Let's take a look at these, and forgive me while I'm back out here. I had a personal one that I was doing a test on to my personal number. Obviously don't want that on camera, but you can see down here, all messages, SMS and MMS and voicemail, and then up here, search, compose, and menu. And again, typical HTC look and feel. They kind of standardized for the most part the menu button up here in the top right-hand corner because they don't have a physical menu button, so they're relying on software. Now, where it gets a little funky is when you go into something like Gmail, and not to skip around too much, but I'm gonna skip around, so we're gonna have to deal with it. So message or the menu button is down here. So think of this as kind of a right click or the menu button that you remember from legacy Android devices, but there's no consistency to it. It's down here in Gmail, it's up here in messages. That's kind of the challenge with Android 4.0 right now, is there's no consistency to the software buttons. And you really see this when you're working with a device like the Galaxy Nexus and some of the ones that have on-screen buttons all across the board. So just something to keep in mind. If consistency bothers you, that may be a point of contention. Otherwise, HTC keyboard here, Sense 4.0 keyboard, still looks nice and still types relatively well. The only thing I'll say is that on a 4-inch display, after working with a 4.8 or 4.7-inch display, I do find it challenging for somebody with pretty large thumbs to type on this. So we'll just say the Quick Brown Fox. Quick Brown Fox is happy that the weekend is here. And then, of course, I can attach stuff here. And I can use it in landscape mode if I want to and get a little bit more screen real estate for somebody with larger thumbs. But again, 4 inches in comparison to the 4.7 on the 1X and the Evo 4G LTE. It's noticeable. Now, you get this keyboard and then you can download alternatives from Google Play. I have an ice cream sandwich free keyboard that I use on a regular basis. You can, of course, download SwiftKey and things like that. But then you have your menu button up here. And so it's a pretty clean, straightforward interface where you can itemize by SMS and MMS and voicemail as well, if that's something you want to access. Speaking of that, onto the browser, because I want to show you this as well. We're going to sign in via Google. Verizon's 4G LTE still working really, really well here. And let's go over to phonedog.com. And let's get rid of that, PhoneDog. And see, again, you can really see my challenges typing on this small keyboard. PhoneDog, especially when you're in an area that doesn't autocorrect. PhoneDog, there we go. 4G LTE still working relatively well. Charlotte metro area, I'm getting speeds between 5 and 12 megabits per second, as Verizon said. And then upload speeds between about 2 and I'd say 6 to 7 megabits per second. So that's something to keep in mind. But you've got your menu button up here, typical ice cream sandwich stuff, the ability to view desktop site, and then you can see the new phonedog.com right here. Transition effects nice and fast. I mean, so in a lot of ways this device performs just fine. I think the biggest issue with this device is the price point. You look at it and you're like, 150 bucks, 50 more dollars can either get me the Galaxy S3 on Verizon or on whatever carrier. On AT&T, you can get the 1X for $199.99, but this thing's coming in about 50 bucks cheaper, and I think given the $50 discrepancy, the features don't exactly add up. I think maybe if this had a 1.5 gigahertz processor, if it was like a 1S, I'd say, hey, go for it. 1S, awesome device, really spec'd well, got a nice 4.3-inch display, got a beautiful body, go for it, and have fun with that device at $150. This one, if I were $99.99, I'd be singing a different tune, but I think, you know, for $150 versus $200, you've got some better alternatives that if you just spend the extra cash and put it down up front, you'll be happy with. That said, some people like the Resound design, and I think for those people, you'll be really pleased with this because in essence, it's a Resound with a slightly faster processor and a thinned out form factor. So PhoneDog here, and of course I can go to tabs down here at the bottom and add my tabs and move back and forth between those.